Hello, Faith Price here, your friendly neighborhood art teacher. I'm going to be talking about my ideal classroom for my culminating project for ED 604. Social emotional learning is a big part of my ideal classroom. CASEL, the Collaborative for Academic, Social, and Emotional Learning, has identified these 5 competencies as being essential to social emotional learning. They are self-awareness, self-management, responsible decision-making, social awareness, and relationship skills. When we return to the classroom, I believe that social emotional learning will be a big part of education. In fact, even if we continue with distance learning for some time, social emotional learning is going to be very important. My ideal classroom includes consideration for helping my students develop their skills in self-management, self-awareness, and social awareness. According to Allison Posey, emotions are essential to learning. Let's take a look at the learning pathway. Because of brain research, we know more about how people learn. We know that higher order thinking, reflection, and memory all take place in the prefrontal cortex. Well, information actually has to go through 2 separate systems in order to even reach the prefrontal cortex. First, it has to go through the attention intake filter, which is the reticular activation system. Basically, the person has to be paying attention, looking and listening. Then the information passes through the amygdala. The amygdala is where our emotion, it's kind of like our emotion filter, which is part of our brain. And then it can pass into the prefrontal cortex. The first social emotional learning competency I'd like to discuss is self-management. Self-management consists of impulse control, stress management, self-discipline, self-motivation, goal setting, and organizational skills. I'd like to focus and narrow in on stress management. The information comes in through that attention filter and then goes to the emotion center of our brain. When a person is stressed, the emotion center of our brain releases hormones, stress hormones. CRH then travels to the pituitary gland, which triggers the release of ACTH. This hormone then travels to the adrenal glands, which prompts them to release cortisol. Excess cortisol and other stress hormones cause body-wide changes like raises in respiration, raises in heart rate, excessive sweating, and that typical fear, flight, or freeze response. This is basically telling the body and the brain that the person is not safe. We know that according to Maslow's hierarchy of needs, if a person's basic needs are not being met, if children's basic needs like safety are not being met, they cannot focus on learning. What strategies do you use in your classroom to help your students manage stress? I like to use break cards. Different children have access to break cards where they can take a break from their regular assignment and they can draw or color. They can take a break to another space in the classroom or even to a different classroom, go visit a teacher. They can use the restroom, they can get a drink. I have a fidget box, and certain students have contracts so they can use the fidgets. They have rules about when they can access them, how they can access them, how they can use them, what would happen like if they weren't using them safely. Each of our classrooms in our building has a peace corner, and the peace corner has a sequin pillow and a weighted blanket and a timer, and then on the wall you'll see some breathing strategies. I like to do brain breaks. Up here is penguin dance. If you feel like it, you can click on it and participate with it right now. Fun little dance. And then of course Mind Yeti is a wonderful tool. It really helps students to get their minds right and get ready for learning. Some experiences cause the emotion center of our brain to release dopamine. Dopamine is a neurotransmitter released by the brain that positively affects mood, movement, memory, the experience of pleasure, behavior and cognition, attention, sleep, and learning. Essentially, dopamine makes us happy. I would like to focus on using some dopamine boosters in my classroom. Some of those are music, being read to, telling or hearing anecdotal stories, humor, interacting with peers, movement, choice, optimism, kindness, and gratitude, curiosity and making predictions, achieving challenges, and no-fail art projects. On the right, you'll see one of my former students, Karma, and her success over there with the no-fail art project. And she's so happy. She must be having a lot of dopamine in her system in this picture. The next component that I'll be focusing on for my ideal classroom is also a social emotional learning competency, and that competency is self-awareness. Self-awareness consists of identifying emotions, accurate self-perception, recognizing strengths, self-confidence, and self-efficacy. I would like to focus more specifically on self-efficacy. Albert Bandura defines self-efficacy as one's belief in one's ability to succeed in specific situations or accomplish a task. On the right, you'll see one of my students, Kaysen. Kaysen was having some trouble with his cutting skills. He's a kindergartner. I pulled him for some extra lessons, and we did some practicing and some guided instruction, and then some modeling, and then some independent practice. In the end, Kaysen cut himself a little badge that says Kaysen can cut, and he was so proud of himself for accomplishing this task. Bandura believed that there were certain experiences that helped people learn self-efficacy. They were mastery experiences, which is our own direct experiences. This is the most powerful source. Vicarious experiences, which is accomplishments that are modeled by someone else. Social persuasion, which is specific performance feedback, kind of like a pep talk. Physiological arousal, which is excitement and a feeling of being ready. This increases efficacy. If you'd like to learn more about Bandura's social cognitive learning theory and how goal attainment and motivation relate to self-efficacy, you can click on this picture up here, and it will pull up a website all about social cognitive theory and Albert Bandura. Since your own personal experiences are the ones that are most powerful, one thing I would like to make sure I do is develop more no-fail art projects. These are projects that really anyone can be successful at. They still demonstrate an understanding of a process or demonstrate an understanding of a concept. They don't necessarily have to look a certain way. They have lots of student choice and lots of options in them. I try to do these at the very beginning of the year, particularly with my kindergarten and first grade learners. That way they're not intimidated by trying to make their artworks look like something. It can be abstract, and the pressure's off. And then once they feel really good about these projects, then we can move on to more challenging things. I think I need to probably do something like that at the beginning of the year with my other grade levels as well. I will be looking into more no-fail art projects to help my students develop their self-efficacy. Goal setting develops self-efficacy. There is no better way to start believing in one's ability to succeed than to set a goal, persist, and achieve it. I need to do some more goal setting in my classroom. And some celebrations. When we reach our goals, they deserve to be celebrated. Some ideas I found online where a class bell, and every time the bell rings, a student has met their goal, or having the kids come up with their own ideas for celebrations and brainstorming on a web. I already do a system with individual students that have behavior plans, and it's a target system, and 4 is a bullseye and the highest score, and 1 is the lowest score. And after they have met their goal, then they get to do a celebration on their own. I would like to just do more goal setting and celebrate when my students reach their goals to develop their self-efficacy. The third component that I will be working on to create my ideal classroom is a social emotional learning competency, the competency of social awareness. Social awareness consists of perspective taking, empathy, appreciating diversity, and respect for others. I will be focusing on appreciating diversity. It makes sense for the art classroom because art itself is so diverse. Just wanted to take a second to share the student demographics for my school. I actually thought we were about half Caucasian, and when you see the breakdown, it's actually less than half. We have about 226 students who are white, 100 and some that are African American, 10 that are classified as Asian, 79 that are Hispanic, and then our group that is continuing to grow is 2 or more races, mostly mixed children that have a Black parent and a white parent. And we have 69 of those right now, and that's a population that's continuing to grow. In my ideal classroom, I would have the resources and the time to ensure that the artist and artistic exemplars that I share with the students represent all 4 of these things: art from around the world, contemporary artists, art that represents youth culture and embraces youth culture, and the great masters. In the race to become competitive with other countries in math and science, social studies and history have kind of taken a back seat. I know that in our system in elementary school, the teachers kind of rotate between science and social studies time, with definitely more time spent in science lessons. And I feel like the children that we're developing really aren't getting a true understanding of different cultures and different places around the world. And really, we're in a very global society. You know, we can literally get on the internet and talk to somebody across on the other side of the world. We're doing business deals on Skype with people in different countries. And I think it's really important to just really know about different cultures' history and their experiences. And I think that sharing artwork is a wonderful vehicle for this and helps students really appreciate the diversity and the beauty of diversity that the world has to offer. This is an area I need to improve on. I rarely share examples of contemporary art in my classroom, and it's a shame. I just feel like I don't have enough time to do everything, but I need to make it a priority. I would like to seek out contemporary artists that represent my students, people that look like my students, so they can see themselves in art and not just see a single story, like Ms. Adichie talked about in her TED Talk, The Danger of a Single Story. And also, art can really be used to start conversations about contemporary issues. The example on the bottom left is about how we're destroying our planet, and this artwork is very thought-provoking and could really lead to a deep and meaningful conversation. Christopher Emdin really made an impression on me and kind of gave me a little bit of a wake-up call in his book For White Folks That Teach in the Hood. He talked a bit about how we have preconceived notions about people that live in poverty. And sometimes when they come in wearing really nice clothes and designer brands and they have a better phone than us, we throw our hands up in the air and say, where are these people's priorities? And that's a problem. Anytime we're talking about these people or judging somebody that we don't understand, it's a sign that we're not really in touch with their culture. Urban youth tends to put a lot of effort into the way they look and the way they dress. And they're proud when they're able to put themselves together in a certain way and put a certain image out there. Christopher Emdin talked about how there was a teacher he was talking to, a white lady, and she was saying she was having a hard time reaching her students in an urban area. And he looked at her and said, you should probably get a really cool pair of shoes and a nice jacket that they'll admire. And then you'll have a way to kind of connect with them and a conversation starter. And they'll probably look at you differently. And she didn't take it well at first, but after some going back and forth and talking over months and her trying some of the things he suggested, she really was able to make a breakthrough. In my ideal classroom, I will be making an effort to incorporate youth culture. even in the artistic exemplars like graffiti and using popular apps like TikTok. And I just can't even wait to think about all the wonderful things that I can pull from my students and young people and use that as inspiration for artwork. And yes, I did just buy a new pair of Air 270s like you see on the screen because my teenage daughter said they were cool. I still plan to continue to share artwork from the great masters, even though they're a bunch of dead white guys. Something that Hirsch said really affirmed that I needed to continue to do that. He said that all children, regardless of where they live, whether they go to a good school or not, that they should all be exposed to the classics in literature, the classics in art, classic musicians, so that they have the same well-rounded, rich cultural experience, regardless of where they live. This course really came at the right time for me. I have been teaching for 17 years and going into my 18th school year. And from the beginning, I sort of emerged as a leader. I can't really help it. My brother would probably call me bossy, but you know, it leads to some leadership skills. And for many years, I thought I was going to be moving up into school administration. I was teacher in charge. I have my master's degree in it. I've got an Admin 1 and Admin 2 certification. And it just seemed like that was going to be my path. Well, a couple years ago, I had back surgery and I missed the first 7 weeks of school. And during that time, I just really ached for my classroom, and it helped me to realize that I want to remain in the classroom. Just because I'm a leader doesn't mean that there aren't other types of leadership roles that I can fulfill in a school other than administration. So since I've decided to stay in the classroom, and this realization has really come within the last couple of years, it's really a good point in my life to reinvent myself, reinvent my classroom, design my ideal classroom, read information, and read about theory, and determine what it is that I stand for, what I believe in, and what I want for my students. So I am thankful for this course and the timing, and that I was able to identify 3 components of my ideal classroom. Thank you for joining me. I apologize for going over my time by a minute or so. Good night.